going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Finding Fantasy. I am your host, fantasy author, card game creator, and educator of history to many talented kids. And I am here today with Alvir and the Eastern Queens Boxing Club. And let me tell you something. This was one of the coolest experiences that I've had in a long time. We are actually in the ring today, and that's where we're doing the interview. And I think we're going to have a great conversation about fantasy, but also about boxing. There's a lot of terms I learned today, so get yourself ready, and I'll see you in the ring. Al, thanks so much for doing this.
You're welcome.
What was that just now? What was that?
It's the bells for the clock for work.
And what does that mean? You start hitting the
beginning and the end of the round.
Wow.
That was the end of the round.
You see, you're going to hear a lot of sounds because we are. What's the name of this gym?
Eastern Queens Boxing Club.
Eastern Queens Boxing Club. You've been working here for a long time, right?
Yeah.
How long have you been here?
11 years.
11 years.
11 years we started.
And you train people.
Yes.
And I know you train kids too.
Kids all ages.
Kids all ages. So from how
Adults.
young?
I've had 2-year-olds. It was a little too young, I think. But 4-year. I've seen some good 4-year-olds who could listen. Could follow directions. But usually a good age is like 6, 7, when they, for serious boxers, they're gonna have futures, in boxing.
And you have them in the ring here.
Have them in the
Test it out a little bit.
They don't get hit until they're about 8 because the skull's apparently more developed at 8, so they don't compete till 8. So
that's incredible. Now you had a fight recently. Didn't you guys have a fight Friday or something?
Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday. How'd that go?
Lost Friday. It was a tough fight. One of the guys kind of lost focus. It's nerve-wracking. You just kind of spaced out and should have won easily, but just lost a decision. And yesterday we won unanimous decision.
Unanimous decision. Wow. And where was that fight?
In Brooklyn. Yeah. It's all over. We got fights all over the city.
Man. How many people do you think you've trained over the course of your career here?
Well, I've been in contact to train a little bit, but probably over 1,000 people, maybe. Probably.
1,000 lives, man.
Yeah, probably.
That's incredible.
But really training and going through like the motions, and the process. Really training people, 100, 200, I don't know. Those are the ones who stuck with it to some extent.
Excellent. And you used to box too.
Yeah, I trained since I was young.
That's great. How young were you when you started
boxing?
12 years old. Okay. All right, so let's get into this. Now that they know who you are, just a piece of it.
Yeah.
Opening up my book of tricks.
All right.
Oh, the only trick is questions. All right, that's okay. So, since this is a fantasy podcast, but it's talking about finding fantasy in our natural world, because it's there. It's ingrained in our culture. So what is fantasy to you, if you had to explain it?
Ooh. I didn't prepare for this, so I got to come off the top of my head. But really, just be honest about it. What is it? My understanding, I guess it's a genre that supernatural. I always think that it's like supernatural things, a lot of fantasy stuff, But my understanding is that it's not always that. So it could be some realistic stuff too, with it too,
So it's a world of make believe with realism ingrained inside,
and some almost like the Bible, some what's it called? Morals, teaching morals,
I have to agree with that. I mean, we've grown up with a lot of fairy tales and things like that, and thank you. And every fairy tale comes with a lesson, a theme, or a moral.
Exactly.
So that makes sense. So in a way, we were sort of raised by fantasy, if you think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Think about that.
For sure.
All right, so this is a good question. I thought about this. How does fantasy or imagination play a role in boxing, in hand-to-hand combat, essentially?
Unlike any other sport, imagination is the most important thing for training in boxing, believe it or not. Because the most important thing that you could do in all of training is shadow boxing. So it's underrated, and most people don't understand it outside of boxing. But that's the time where you really get to, almost like it's like active meditation. You know, you're imagining your opponent. Imagine how he's going to be hitting you. Imagine being in pain. Imagine being tired. You know, and strategy, and everything you do in all of your training should be mimicking those feelings. So we're always trying to put ourselves into the suffering. We're trying to suffer. We're trying to suffer.
Wow.
You know,
To improve.
to improve and to be ready for the worst.
Now, can anyone do the shadow boxing thing?
Anybody
just take a look at it on YouTube or something, or
yeah, it's all it is working punching in the air. So when you see them, a lot of people think they're just warming up. Some people are just warming up, throwing punches in the air, but really the true work of shadow boxing is moving around, imagining an opponent, imagining how it feels, putting yourself in those positions, and then working your strategy. It's not just technique though. It's a mental thing.
I was just thinking,
yeah,
the mind is the greatest tool to train for things like this. It's amazing what the mind can achieve.
Yeah.
It can make you think, feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so since we're talking about that, how well has hand-to-hand combat been represented in fantasy movies, shows?
Horrendously.
Horrendously. That's what I was thinking. What is this about now? What's going on here?
Because they want to sell it, and you always hear that noise when people, and it's not always like that. And everybody, you get hit one time, they're always falling down. Everybody gets knocked out right away. It's just, I've been an extra in some of these shows, several times, and I'm like, man, this shit is terrible. It's terrible how they're doing it, but they say there's an art to the movies, something doesn't instantly have to react so overreact, It's not like that, When you're in boxing or any fight, you learn that you can take a lot. The body can take a lot. You're not just getting knocked out so easily. You see it on TV all the time. I mean, in the news, people get knocked out right away, but most of the time it's not like that. Those are people who are drunk, getting clean shots, getting knocked out. But my point is that it's obviously it's made to be so interesting with the movie. I can't find the word.
No, sometimes when I see a movie of boxing, I see them just taking hits, and I'm thinking,
and
aren't they supposed to block or something?
Yeah, they're supposed to. And also, just because you get hit, why is your head flicking back like that? You can get hit and you just, nothing will happen.
Exactly. Now, getting knocked out, that's going to have some long-term implications, or what's your thought on that?
I don't think, not necessarily. Not necessarily. You just definitely can't happen a lot. It's like a concussion in football. These people are always getting concussed. The thing about fighting is the goal is to not get concussed. Like in football, they're constantly hitting each other, and it's part of the game. You're using your head to ram somebody, so they're constantly getting the brain shaking around. But fighters will try to avoid that. But once you get knocked out twice, even if you really get concussed, you shouldn't even do it. Probably
brain damage,
especially in the amateurs.
Wow. Because that happens all the time in movies or shows.
Yeah.
You see a combat happen and someone gets choked out or knocked out, and they're back. It's okay.
Well, the thing is, they also get rest. Like once somebody gets knocked out, they can't box. They can't even go spar or anything for a while.
So it's all fantasy. I think, didn't Mike Tyson say that? Everyone has a plan until you're punched in the face.
Yeah.
And that's it. Everyone has a fantasy or a belief of what combat is until you are in it or you see it for real.
Yeah.
It's interesting too. All right, here we go. This is what we've been waiting for. So if you were in a fantasy book, game, movie, show, what fantasy world are you looking at right now? If you had a choice to be in one of those.
In one of the once again, if it was a show,
any fantasy show, book, video game, movie, what's one world you wouldn't mind getting lost in? You think you'd thrive in that world?
Maybe something with sorcery.
A sorcery world. All right, so let's see.
So. Seems
because you're a magic man. You like magic?
I love it.
You love it.
I love magic.
So
I'm not good at it, but I don't do it. I mean, but it's one of my favorite things to watch magic shows.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So are we looking at Harry Potter stuff or something a little more serious?
Definitely more serious.
More serious. So it's not dark enough for you.
That's not dark.
That's what you
It has
want.
to be dark.
All right. Is there a certain spell that you would like to use or that you're interested in? A certain type of
Wow.
sorcery?
I really, and I think about this stuff all the time. I talk to my son about this stuff, like what our wishes would be. Like if you had three wishes, I don't know if you get into that when you ask for
Well, yeah.
sorcery.
Well, think about it. Suppose you're in a match, right? And you could use a power. You could use an ability. What is some spell that you use? Would it be to be able to have stamina continuously? Would it be to have a burst of strength?
I think it would be to it's a little bit realistic because you see some greats who do it, but I think it would be to not get hit,
To not get hit, to
just
evade
to
everything.
evade everything,
Ah,
because it's so frustrating for somebody to not be able to hit you.
sure.
You know,
I saw a
it's just
video just a couple of days ago of amateurs trying to hit boxers or trying to hit UFC. See if you can land a punch.
yeah, it's probably not amateurs. Amateurs, yeah, they're non-amateurs. They're not even amateurs is not an insult in boxing.
All right. So
Yeah,
what
an
is that
amateur,
term?
an
Mean?
amateur is actually somebody who competes and is not being paid for it.
Really?
So that's an
You see, that's a
amateur.
term.
So
That's a
so you're
boxing
not an
term.
amateur boxer. You're a civilian.
I'm a nobody.
A nobody. Yeah. So if you say it's like, oh, he's an amateur, that's a compliment.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
this is what you learn, man.
Yeah.
This is the world I'm in right now. See, I know fantasy to a degree, but this is not a world. To me, this is all a learning experience. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Because the name you chose even for this video was Chief, but you were saying Chief second.
Chief second. So being a coach, when you work in a corner in a fight, you're called the chief second. You're the one who's in charge of the corner, in charge of the fighter and everything. Back in the days, they're called seconds because the fighter is the first.
Oh wow!
And the coach is the second. The trainer is the second. So what would happen is if that fighter couldn't continue to fight, the chief second would come in as
Gotcha.
a second fighter to fight to continue the bout.
That's
So
incredible.
yeah. So
See,
chief second is what but all coaches are chief seconds really in a fight.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I see that in a fantasy text or a fantasy context, I should say. So we're looking at the chief of a tribal nation, or chief of sorcery, essentially. So I like that term too. That works. Can anybody box? Can anyone come in here and just start training how to box?
Yeah, I believe so. Anybody can try, but it all depends on what your truth is. You know what you're looking to get out of it. Not everybody can do this in a competition.
Mm.
You know, because you have to get your weight down, you have to prepare, you have to be ready. And when you have a coach who knows what they're doing, they're going to know if you're going to be safe and you're prepared to win. If you're ready to go in and win. But not everybody can get to that level. You know, it usually takes about, I'd say, a year of real training.
Year of real training. Let me ask you this. So the new Creed is coming out, Creed 3. Do you think you'll find an uptick in people wanting to box, essentially?
I believe so. I think those things help, even though I think Creed is terrible. I think
I wasn't going to
Michael B. Jordan just like his box. It just looks terrible. Like Sylvester Stallone and all the guys back, they actually looked like boxers the way they punched.
And
Even
now
Sylvester
so
Stallone,
just
like
kinda-
low level, but Michael B. Jordan looks like he never boxed before.
Wow.
So you
So
may
it's
not be
all
able to tell,
Hollywood.
but yeah, you can tell he's just an actor who went in, like Rob De Niro, Raging Bull. Like you could tell he didn't box.
Wow.
You know, but then when you see Sylvester Stallone actually could throw punches.
That's incredible.
You know,
And he could take punches.
He
I
could
know
look
that.
like, the little movements you could tell. You know,
Sure. I know that in Rocky 4, he took real punches from Dolph Lundgren.
I think he did it a lot. They do, and when they do those slow motion things, that you got to take the punch and they let the sweat fly
Sure,
off.
sure.
And somewhat, you're taking some punches. Yeah, I love the Rockies though. They're the best.
Great films.
Yeah,
All the way
Creed
to
is definitely
5?
not as good. I love them all.
Incredible. That's great.
I love them all.
This is coming from a boxing
Yeah.
guy. See, like I said, this is fantasy to many of us who don't know this world. But fantasy walks within it, as you just heard. Imagination is the biggest key to real success. So before we finalize this whole thing, I've already had a great time. I mean, I just got here a little while ago, and I can't wait to explore more about this awesome place. Do you have any questions for me?
Um, how long have you done this podcast?
This
I'm
podcast,
just curious.
brand new. This is year number 4.
Oh, really? Okay.
This is a new idea I had that I thought, why don't we actually ask uh, very interesting people, very unique people that aren't writing fantasy or making fantasy or anything like that. Really, they're just either fans or not fans at all. Can you find fantasy in your career, in your life? Where is it? And we've asked architects, we've asked adventurers, we've gone hiking. We had interviewed someone in episode 2 that visited 48 states hiking and seeing how nature and fantasy sort of coincide, coexist. Um, yeah, I've asked someone who's a master of Magic the Gathering to talk about sorcery.
Yeah.
Guys, he's incredible. And now I'm asking
So let me ask you,
Chief
what,
second.
so what is really fantasy to you then? Because fantasy has a negative connotation in the boxing gym.
All right,
Because
in what sense?
in all sports, right, in the amateur levels, or people are living fantasies. They're just they just want to feel like they're doing. They play softball. They want to feel like they're like the greatest things. They're like the major league baseball players. You know, you're living a fantasy, right? And it's a negative thing. And boxers do that. There's some boxers who want to become champions and who are really in the process to become professional champions, trying to do that. The odds are against all of us, but the point is we're in the process. And then you have some people who just want to bucket list and just have a couple fights and just feel how it is, and that's the fantasy of it. And I'm very much against that, you know, because it's that type of fantasy is negative connotation. You know, you want to pretend you're something, but you're not really in it to fight the best. The whole point of fighting is the suffering. You know, that's why civilians don't do it. You have to, um, you have that an urge to want to feel it, to want to suffer. I can't really explain it.
No, I think I understand 100%.
Like a runner. Like think about somebody who runs marathons. You know, they get who the fuck wants to run a marathon, right? I mean, just if you're not a runner, but they get this high and that pain, you know, at the end, or, you know, the last few miles, right? They get a high off of that. Similar to a fighter, you know, they have to be in to want to feel that the rush of challenge, right? But the fantasy that a lot of other people, they just want to beat somebody up. They just want to go in the ring, get their hand raised. It's not really
That's
good.
interesting. So they want to become that fantasy.
Yeah.
That's the danger of it. Like I know that the Assassin's Creed games, many people, and this is a real thing. It's not like a condition, but it happens. People who play Assassin's Creed games, some of them think they can do that.
Yes,
they can jump around and climb, and that they start breaking legs and stuff. Anyway, I really want to thank you for doing this, taking the time out of your day, and I think it's really cool that someone can start from nowhere and even just achieve some sense of, wow, I mean, I didn't know I had the skill, but I can do it. You know, you don't know what you have until you actually go out there and give it a shot. So sometimes things are just make believe until you go out and you see, you know what? I can lose the weight. I can get in shape. I can have another skill, and I can teach other people how to better themselves like you've done. So,
thank you.
in your field, this wasn't a fantasy. You made it reality for a lot of people to feel better about themselves, to gain a greater sense of confidence. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, definitely. And it keeps kids off the streets, you know, really.
Well done, sir.
Thank you.
It's great to talk
Thank
to
you,
you,
man.
and I
Definitely.
can't wait to share the link, the address to this place, so you guys can actually, if you're interested, check it out yourself. You can meet Sir Alvir. Have a great conversation like I just did.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Until next time, guys. Thanks.